So welcome to the presentation about management of the overweight horse. Let's see, I have some notes. Yes, I wrote them down. Yes, so what's the content of today? Today we will talk about the management of the overweight horse and anything you bring to the table. At the end, we have a Q&A, and there also will be homework assignments, because then in the homework you can practice what we talked about. Again, start with the end in mind. That is a technique that I learned from so many management courses for people. And really, if you have the end in mind, then it's easier. It's for your shaping plan. Then it's easier to make baby steps. And so think about what you want, what I want to look like, the behavior, what the ideal situation would be, because then you have a course that you set your compass to. Let's get started. So managing the overweight horse. This is Kira in 2016. She had a body score of 9. And I was telling myself on the left picture that Kira was okay, that she was just a little baroque because she's Andalusian and Exmoor, and that it was her breed, because she seemed very, very happy and she was healthy. Until she wasn't. And I didn't know that EMS, equine metabolic syndrome, usually starts to show up between 8 and 12 years. So they can be like what happened to Kira. She was like all her life almost like a fat, happy horse until she got laminitis. And that was really a devastating diagnosis. And it was also hard for me to realize, because she was so sore in all her feet, it was even hard for me to recognize that she was lame. But I did see the signs, and I did think she was in pain, but I didn't realize it was so bad. So I did x-rays. She had a rotation of 10% in her front feet, and we could do the x-rays because she had to step onto a little wooden block, which I trained her to do in clicker challenge. And so I joked to the vet, like, well, can I get like maybe a discount, because she's behaving so safely and she's so easy. You can just put her foot on a wooden block and she steps on it and you can make x-rays. And he was like, discount? No, I don't do that. Well, actually, you getting a discount of $50, because normally I what's the word? Well, I make them calmer with an injection, so they won't knock over the laptop and the equipment. So there's your discount. So that was kind of, yeah, that was a really nice, good moment. But so Kira got laminitis. The vet said she's body score 8, and then no, wait, she's a 9, and that was very, very confronting, because I felt a bad horse owner. I had let Kira down, and I also was ashamed. How could I, like a clicker coach, let this happen? And that's a question that I had on my mind for a long, long, long time. And I think I just didn't have the drive to look for outside solutions, outside my comfort zone. There was no drive. She was in a group with a round bill, and I was convinced that there were no other places with group housing available around Vancouver in Canada. I do admit group housing is not a common thing here in Vancouver. It is rare. It is really rare. but the place that I was boarding wasn't the only place, but I just didn't have an incentive to look outside the place that I already found. And also moving your horse is stressful for yourself, is stressful for your horse. It's hard to take your horse away from the group that she loves and has been there for 7 years. So that was why I stayed where I stayed and kind of let this happen. I also didn't like riding at the moment because the footing in the arena was very, very heavy. And due to her weight, she wasn't happy and forward. And so there was no fun in riding for me because I didn't know how to get her more forward. So we were very, very, very slow in riding, and that just was so frustrating for me. I also didn't like lunging. So we almost didn't do anything for exercising. I also didn't want to put her on a diet at that moment. I knew she was a little bit, heavy boned. Well, she was just fat. But in solitary confinement or starting traditional exercising, yes, it did cross my mind, but I discarded that thought because I didn't think it was necessary. I thought I would put her through so much stress by putting her on a diet, putting myself in the stress by, I had to ask and talk to my barn manager, and I had to explain things, and I didn't know if I could do that. So I was really passive until she got laminitis, and that all changed because then I had that strong incentive. I had to get Kira pain-free and healthy, and I do understand myself. There was no incentive when she was still fat and happy and fat, and I thought she was healthy. Of course, there were things going on that I didn't see, that I didn't notice, that I didn't know. But when she was ill and in so much pain, it was really, really time to take action. So there was my incentive. And I think that was for me. And over the years, I stopped blaming myself. And I thought, what is the good in this? Well, the good in this is, first of all, I understand what people are going through, how it works in your mind, how you talk yourself into it's not that bad. And because you don't know what you don't know, you don't know how to step out of your comfort zone and moving on, getting the exercising, slimming your horses down, and so on. So the good thing about all of this is that I learned so much about myself, about how my brain works, so I can really relate to where you are at. At this picture on the left, Kira had really like fat pockets on her bum, and she had really cellulitis. She had really like those dimples in her fat. I was like, and I tried to ignore it. I start massaging the cellulitis in the hope that it would just go away. It didn't, but yeah, I did things like that. Her waist was very just filled up. She had fat pockets behind her shoulder, and also a very, very crusty neck. If I feel other horses, which I almost never did, I'm like, there's no fat under that mane. But with Kira, it was always like 5 centimeters of fat just under her mane. And the picture on the right, you can see that this is just a straight line. I still think it's hard to see those fat pockets, but they were really, really there. So perfect solutions in a perfect world. We would have all track systems. We would all have like management systems for feeding, maybe with microchips that they can only feed so much, or that you have like a track with poles, and like, yeah, that is perfect solutions in a perfect world. And it is really good to think about those things, but don't expect that much from yourself, from your boarding facility, from your own stable at home. We can, I would like to show this just for inspiration. And then we have to ask ourselves, what can we do? Because we can't all have a track system, a perfect equine friends for a horse, no mud, etc. And that's okay. And we don't have to in order to get our horses healthy. And even though if you do have a track system, that doesn't guarantee a horse with a perfect weight. So you have to start where you are at. What are your challenges? It's really good to write them down. Take the time and write down all of your challenges. Make a list. You will be surprised what come up for you if you take pen and paper. And it's really, really good exercise for your brain, because you can only think one thought at a time. And when you write things down, your brain is occupied with that particular thought. So yeah, I would like to ask you, try it. Make a list of all the challenges. Here are some challenges that I had. Well, first of all, she was overweight. She didn't like to move. Then she got laminitis, and she was diagnosed with equine metabolic syndrome, EMS. So that means diabetes 2. She would be always hungry, and she couldn't handle sugars. So my challenges were, she had a body score of 9. She started to eat wood. That is the second picture here. She chewed a hole in one afternoon in her shelter. And she also didn't know how to handle slow feeder nets. So I dealt with a laminitis horse. She was in pain, and I had to change drastically what I was doing. So she went from group housing, full board, to solitary housing. So that was stress for her and for me, because I also had to muck her paddock, because that was not included in my full board. And she had to go in a stable at night, because all the paddock horses did. And it was summer, so the rest of the horses stayed outside. And it was very, very time consuming for me. So on top of all the stress that I had to spend a lot of time, and it was a 30-minute drive to the stable. So just going to my horse took me 1 hour, just travel time. I had to exercise her daily, and I had to come to the barn 7 days a week. And the pitfall that I fell into was that I had the idea that I had to do this forever and ever. But that wasn't the case. It was only for a short period of time. And in hindsight, I will get to that later, it wasn't that long, but because I didn't know how long it would take, I was also very, very stressed by, oh, I have to do this forever. Can I do this? But that was not the case. So don't worry. Kira was also stressed out. She chewed wood. She started to pace. There was like a whole trench along the paddock side. She had neighbors, but there was like hot wire in between. And since she's a mare, she's not very playful. Like the geldings played over the fence, but she didn't do that. She ate a hole in her shelter. I had to pay for that, for the repairs, which was also stressful. And I was just trying to avoid her, prevent her from chewing wood in the beginning. I put all things on there. I had the best. I had like the green solution that you put on their hooves, the copper core there. Well, she got green because she got it on her coat, hoof tar, and it get it on her coat. Then people said like dilute manure and pour manure on it, like she would stop that. That didn't really help. Even that didn't help. I found dishwasher solution on the wood helped, but at the same time I was also very frantically looking for solutions to give her an alternative, because the whole wood chewing and the chewing holes in her slow feeder just indicated that she was super, super stressed and that she needed fiber. Yeah, and she paced a lot, which also stressed me, because I know if she's stressed, that is so bad for inflammation. So my pro tip for you is start asking questions the right way. I was also very lucky to have a very supportive husband who did a lot of research for me about soaking hay, how long, what temperatures, the effect of soaking hay, and so forth. So the question is, what can you do? So don't ask, can I do something? Because that's just yes or no answer. Can I do something? Yes, no. Well, and it's very easy if you are stressed about your horse to say, no, I can't do anything. So ask, what can I do? With such questions, your brain wants to find an answer, because your brain always wants to answer questions. So can I do something? No, end of story. But asking your brain, what can I do? Now your brain wants to find the answer, even if it's one that you reject right away. Like, I could exercise my horse. I could ride my horse more. Yeah, no. So what could I do? I should exercise Kira, but I can't because I don't like riding. I don't want to lunge her. And I came up with all the don'ts. But asking, what can I do to exercise Kira, gave a different answer. I could start with in-hand walks for 20 minutes. So that's how you start asking the right questions. Ask, how can I do this? When can I start best? And for me, how can I do the hand works or the exercising in hand? That would be daily hand walks. Could I do that? Yes, I said I will do it I will just start for 1 week. And then after a week, I was rescheduling my whole agenda, and I managed to do that. I had very much support of my husband and from my son, from at home. Everybody facilitated me that my calendar, my agenda had to put Kira first. I didn't realize that before I did that, but I was very, very grateful of that. And then I realized, like, if you really want something, you can do it. So when do I start best? Well, there is no better time than the present, because someday is not a day in your weekly calendar. So what can you do to lengthen eating time? Find solutions like slow feeders, or mixing in straw with hay, so they have to eat around it if they don't like that. Those kind of questions. Or what can you do to lower the calorie intake? Have you thought about that? Is there a different kind of food maybe that you can offer, that you maybe can take out of your horse's diet? Kira was fed a round bale, so I had to find solutions not to give her full access 12 hours a day to a round bale, because that was just a bad idea. If your horse, or if all the horses at the barn get alfalfa, can you give Timothy hay? Maybe you can add a muzzle. What can you do to lower the calorie intake? What can you do to increase burning calories? Maybe in winter you can leave the blanket off, or more movement, or more stress. And I say stress in this particular setup, because I read a post on social media about flies, how flies influence the movement of horses in the pasture. I wouldn't say like put that kind of stress in there, or maybe a friend or like another horse that they don't like, so your horse is being like exercised by the other horses. But thinking about outside the box, are there solutions that you can change something in the setup, and every little bit helps. Ask yourself, what can I do to overcome the challenges my horse throws at me? Take a look at them one by one and then focus on the idea that there is a solution, but you only have to find it. Also, ask your vet to ask for ideas. What can you do to increase your horse's health? So I had these questions. What can I do? So I had challenges. I started with in-hand walks to begin with. I started introducing enrichment ideas. I added a jolly ball, which she totally ignored, even when I trained her to do something. I found mares are not as playful as geldings. They are more interested in food enrichment and solutions, but that's my personal experience. So I added a full net of straw because that's very high in fiber, and her wood chewing stopped. The straw on the ground was the straw that I took out of the net. If it hung there for 2 days, I figured, she's not interested in that at all. So I took it out. I spreaded it on the floor of her shelter in her paddock, in her solitary paddock. And then I offered fresh straw. And I realized that if the straw was fresh, if it was hanging there for a few days, she lost interest at all. So I did gave her fresh straw. And that really impacted how she went about the pacing, how her wood chewing. I was soaking hay, so I had to find ways to be creative. Here on the right side, I just put it in a barrel, which I found on the premises, and then I soaked it. So we have some sugar hay tea here. And I found that the taps in the paddock, that I put just a little what's those things that you use in the pool noodles. I just put a pool noodle on the tap so I could lead the water to my tub. I also learned later that I could put this whole setup in a big green wheelbarrow so I could drain it very easily. So those were my solutions to make hay soaking easier. And also about the hay soaking, 30 minutes seemed to be the perfect length of soaking, according to all the studies we looked into. And so I soaked my hay first, then I went doing chores, then I set my alarm on my phone, then I got the hay out, I drained it, then I started exercises, and then I fed her the hay. So that was kind of like my whole setup, that I figured out what would be the most effective time management of my time at the barn. This is the fourth solution that I had. I hang up a turnip because they are low in calories on a rope, so she could chew on it. She didn't eat it. She didn't like it. So I clicker trained her to eat it and take bites out of it. And I do have a video if you want to see how I did that. But Kira was born in the wild, and over her whole life, she didn't eat things that she didn't know. So I had to teach her that carrots wouldn't kill her. I had to teach her how to eat apples. She refused in the beginning. She refused everything she didn't know. She never liked store-bought treats. So I baked my own treats for her. I have a recipe, very low calorie. I left the molasses out. It's made of rice. So I also have solutions for treats in training. I bought soft boots. Those are special boots that helped her exercise with less pain and also gave her relief the pain in her front feet. They had special inlays for laminitis horses. So that was also a little thing that I helped, so I could hand walk her. On the picture on the left, she had other kind of boots that I was able to borrow from somebody at the barn. And I also bought her, but that was later, a grazing muzzle for when she was ready to go back in the herd. And you have to train horses to wear them, and you have to teach them how to use them. Yes, they do have disadvantages because they can influence like their social interactions, but for sick horses, I think it can be a really, really good alternative. I've also seen lots of troubles with grazing masks. I had lots of troubles with grazing masks with my first pony. I will talk about that, how I overcome all these challenges. But they also have huge pros because your horse can graze, he can be in a group, he has his space. In short, the 3 F's of forage, friends, and freedoms. So let's take a look at my results. This was in July 2016. Kira had a body score of 9. She had fat pockets on her bum. Her flanks were filled. She had fat pockets behind her shoulders. She had a belly, and she had a very crusty neck. So when I started doing my exercises, she started to slim down, and this was only 2 months later. You could see that she has a huge weight loss. So when she got better, her laminitis was over. I could start about thinking what I could do. And this was the point that I started to looking. Then I was ready. I was also ready. Like I can't keep her in this particular barn, in this setup where the horses go out 24/7 and get round bills if there's not enough grass. I was so afraid that she got laminitis again. I thought in this situation, she did get laminitis, so I have to change her environment. So that's where I started looking for other barns. I did found the first barn I found, they had also solitary paddocks, which is very common in the area where I live. And then so they were in the stable at night and then in their solitary paddocks during the day, and not even for 12 hours, but way less. But this particular barn had like one big paddock for 2 horses. So I arranged that Kira could be with another horse. She became friends with that horse like instantaneously, which was so amazing. So that was a good point. Later on, it wasn't the barn that I was looking for because they said the horses were going out every day, but they forgot to mention every day when it's not raining. In Vancouver, it rains a lot, especially in winter. So that meant that some days they went out only 1 hour. So she became very also high energetic because she just didn't get her movement during the day, which was also stressful for me and for her. So I had to change setups again. And then I found a kind of a paddock paradise where the horses were in a group, no stables at all. They were out in the field for 24 or in a paddock 24/7, and in the summer in a field, which was truly, truly amazing. And if I wouldn't have looked for it, I wouldn't have found it. So, and yeah, miracles happen. So what can you do? So you can do enrichment, which allows and entices the horse specific behaviors. So increase grazing and browsing time. For instance, maybe you can add some branches, like willow is really, really healthy for them. They like to chew off the bark. Social enrichment, so with you or horses. You can add smells, you can add novelty, you can use the 3 F's, freedom, food, and friends. So freedom, can you do something in the sense of a movement or a track system or in a paddock? Oh, I made notes about the paddock, but I forgot to, here they are. Because I wanted to say something about that. Anyway, we come. So for paddock, horses exit or move more if the paddock is in a rectangle than if it's in a square. They also move more if the shelter is in the middle, because they start moving around the shelter, which really entices them to move more. So those are also solutions that maybe you can think of. If they have a paddock, put something in the middle, so they have to walk around it, so they cannot just go from point 1 to B in a straight line, but they have to go around whatever you set up in the middle. Think about food. How can you add more fiber, maybe less calories? Or the setup, how can you change that? Maybe you can put the water and the hay apart, like the water in the opposite corner of the hay. Or you add slow feeders, or maybe multiple food stations, so they have to go from hay net to hay net, even when they are in a paddock by themselves. Maybe you can think of something that they have longer availability to food and stand less hours without food, because that can also be stressful and cause ulcers. Maybe food toys like turnip, or putting turnip in a hay net, or mixing hay with straw, or those kind of things. And friends, social housing, because that reduces stress. They move each other around in good ways and bad ways. They can have social behaviors like play, allo grooming, and they feel safe. If they lay down on the ground to sleep, there's another horse being awake and stand guard, which gives them a safety feeling. Let's see if I just go through my notes to see if I forgot something. Yeah, also the freedom, if you give your horse freedom, that allows them for their natural rhythm. They can have siesta time, they can have running time for around sunset, sundown. If your horse likes to dunk his hay, then it's not a good idea to put, well, then it's still a good idea to put the drinking water on the opposite of the hay. But then I would allow a dunking bucket next to his hay, because if they like to dunk their hay, I think it's kind of cruel to prevent that. And then you can provide clean drinking water, because they usually don't drink the dunking water, that as far as I have seen. Yeah, and you can offer more piles of hay bags than horses, so they can rotate. You can add maybe a salt lick. You can do some enrichment to stimulate movement, for instance, hiding food under cones, but that is really not sustainable for long periods of time to create the movements. But it is something that you can add, like new to this day, and then you don't do it, and then in 3 days you do something like that. Especially I thought of lots of those little things when Kira was in solitary confinement, and I was asking myself, how can I make this day a little bit better? And it were small things, but I think in the end it ended up, because I could also have said, okay, she's in solitary paddock, 3 feeding times a day, that's it. But they offered 3 feeding times, and I managed my calendar in a way that I could add a 4th time. I also put hay in her stable, so then when she was stabled at night, there was another food source, so she got 5 instead of 3 times feedings a day. So all small things maybe, but I do believe that they add up. You can also put polls if they like to pace, then you can put maybe an obstacle there or a poles to step over. Or for some horses, laminitis horses, you can provide wet sand to stand in to alleviate pain and to cool their hooves down. Yeah, and you can also give novelty new objects like a jolly ball or cardboard boxes or mats or tarps. And if you have them, add hills and use them and use the setup. Maybe there's a paddock that is a little bit more hilly than other paddocks, and you can ask if your horse can live there for a while. And then enrichment stimulates your horse's mind and body. And that's also time that they don't spend eating. Yeah, maybe they do get treats from you in training, but it's different than that they have hay in a hay net. But training is a high involvement of you as an owner. So ask yourself if you can give yourself or give your horse games which has a low involvement of yourself, or a mix of both of them. So your homework would be, I will write it down in an email. I'll just make a note. Send homework. Write down a list of everything you could improve in your horse's management. Don't worry about the how, but just a list. And then the how, we will talk about that together. And then mark the ones that are most realistic to do. So for me, okay, exercising, riding, lunging were all things. And then I was, okay, so what can I do for me realistically? I didn't want to ride. I would never ride a horse that has laminitis. I didn't want to lunge her, absolutely not. So, but what could I do? So I started in hand work, walks, just 20-30 minutes a day, but I did them every day for 2 weeks. That's how I started. So those are the find ways to execute, and you don't have to do them alone, because in a group is better and it's also easier. So this is my little alarm for the end, and also maybe for a little break before we go do discussions. I will just do this slide. So the question is, what about you? What ways can you improve in management situations? What ideas did spark your joy? What do you think will work for you? And how can I help you? So let's start the discussion. I'll just put this on a little
controlling her weight,
because you're going to say something really important. So I'm just recording.
I'm looking at controlling her, the two different things, controlling her weight, but also controlling other factors that might precipitate laminitis, because the weight is just one. And I actually think she's in a pretty good setup now. But then the third factor is, with the seasonal changes,
yes,
it becomes a big problem, because right now they've been on grass and they just have a round bale out, but she's eating grass. So what precipitated her laminitis in the past was actually winter thaw and grass, winter grass coming through, which is very high in sugar. So there's so much in our area, and with climate change, we have much more freeze and thaw in the winter. And yeah, I'm really looking hard at, where would be the best environment for her. Like, I may have to not have her in the paddock or place she's in right now. But I have a few sort of things that have worked for me with her in the past. You want me to mention that, and things that I found
Absolutely,
didn't work,
share, because
and
we are
questions about
recording
them.
this, and what
Okay.
your experiences are so valuable for everybody else.
So some of the things that I've been using for her weight control are actually having her stabled at night so that I can manage her hay intake, and
Yes.
using a slow feeder. I had a net on the wall, but she just stood there, and she's only a pony, so she would move around the stall. So I actually took it off and just ran a rope through it and made it into a hay pillow. And I think because there are hay pillows online, but they're sort of cloth with netting, and she's small, so she's okay with the 1.5-inch openings. But I could see how a horse would be frustrated by that small an opening,
Well, you
But
can train them
not.
to.
She's not frustrated by it. She's
No.
actually very good at getting hay if she wants it, which leads to the second thing, which is that I did muzzle her last year in the winter when she was out with a round bale, and the summer before, after her laminitis. She got so efficient with a grazing muzzle. It made no difference to her weight. She could get hay out of the round feed bale with a grazing muzzle. I've also heard about some teeth problems with it, and she really loves to do allo grooming with with the young horse that's out there. So I don't have her in a muzzle right now. When I did, I found it very easy to teach her to put it on. I actually put a roughage chunk in the muzzle every day when I put the muzzle on, like a halter. I just put her treat inside it,
Yeah.
and she would just dive her muzzle into it and get it on. But I don't think she was happy in it. I really felt bad having her in it. And then when she got so efficient with it, it seemed pointless. One of the
It's
things.
not. Can I? Did
Okay.
you test how much hay she ate without and with a muzzle?
Not really. You're right.
So this is a tip. And this is what I did when Kira was in solitary confinement. I was like, well, I have to do something. So I wanted to measure how long I can like lengthen her eating time, because their stomach makes acid no matter
Right.
if they have food or not. Like different from us, our stomachs will make stomach acid in anticipation of food. So when we see it, when we smell it, maybe when we talk about it, then, oh yeah, I'm hungry. But for horses, they are meant to eat like 16 hours a day. They have that continuously built in. So I wanted to stretch like that flake of hay, what would happen? So I gave her a loose flake of dry hay. I think she ate that within, it was not a big flake. I was not that scientific that I really measured it. Now I would do that, but weigh it. But a thin flake of hay, I think took her 20 minutes loose. And from a slow feeder, it took her, I think 40 to 60 minutes, depending on like, and it was, I think, 1-inch holes. So I just measured the time, and those things can also really help you, make you feel good. Kira also learned, well, in the beginning, she just ate a hole in her net, and that was her solution. And once I managed to teach her, to train her to eat from a slow feeder, later on, I added the muzzle, and indeed, she could eat from a net, and later on even slow feeder net with a muzzle. But I still think, even though they become really handy and agile with it, I still believe it slows them down from just loose hay on the ground without a muzzle. So it is a good thing. But I see what you're getting, because they get so agile, it seems not to work anymore. But I think
Well,
in comparison, it still does.
Well, I think right now this year, I mean, for the summer, she's been in a good paddock. This is the first summer she's been in this paddock. It's big. They have to go all the way down from the back to the water at the front. It's hilly. They have lots of movement. The others in the herd move her around as well. And for her, the advantages of that outweigh the muscle at the moment. Now, I think I will turn her out now once the other horses have gone up. I think that's actually a good strategy, just so she gets this gallop up the hill every day, every little bit. The other thing I did was, well, I had a problem deciding what to give her as treats for training. So, I mean, she actually will chew on a roughage cubes, like quite, that seems to work. It's not a full handful. At the beginning, though, I give her a ration balancer twice a day, which is just like the vitamins and minerals. And I was using that. It's in pellets, and I used that at first as her treat, and then I subsequently, once she got the idea, moved to the roughage cubes. But then for her, that works, even though it's not a whole handful. She's a dainty eater out of my hand. So some horses that would not work, and for her as a pony, she isn't. I tried the winter before hay soaking. Well, the year before hay soaking went well in the summer. It was a disaster in the winter when it was very cold.
I found the
I know
same.
they have hay steamers, but they're like, the cost is prohibitive. I don't
Yeah,
have
I
the
found the
straw.
same thing in winter, with it was not doable in winter because it
No,
froze over. I didn't have enough water that I was
well, it was
that I could
terrible.
use. So in winter, what I did was stop soaking the hay, cross my fingers, hope for the best. And for me, for my situation, Kira was already better when winter started. So I started to introducing dry hay, and that went well. But it also depends on the hay quality and what you say. If they are outside and it freezes, the sugar content in the grass goes up. So then you have to start like taking a look at, and that's a lot of work, like what is the weather, did it freeze, how can we put our horses outside later of the day or not at all that day. So it is a lot of management and stress. Hi Sarah, I just want to say I don't know what happened, but we started at 9. So there is already a presentation, but it's all recorded for you. And we are just at the Q&A part and discussion and we will just, we will have another hour for that. So if you.
So one
Okay, great.
last thing.
Yeah, sorry, I got waylaid off doing family stuff, so I will definitely watch the presentation.
No worries, but it's more for information for you. I don't want you to think, when is the presentation starting? Because we're all in different time zones and stuff like
No,
that.
that's fine.
So just one last thing about the type of hay. I wanted to know what kind of straw you used, like, because like wheat straws I've used for bedding in the past. Did you get oat straw or something to chew on?
I
or did you,
think it was oat
barley
straw.
that can have allergies to? Yeah, oat
Oat
straw.
straw or barley, but I don't know. They only had one kind, and I didn't even know if that was the good kind or like because there are kinds of straws that they can get colic from, or some horses get colic from. So that is for you as an owner to look into and do your research.
But I had an alternative that I did, which was in the summer where they had some hay that they were strewing all over the paddock, where they sort of the ends of the round bale, just not the stuff that had pee and poop on it, but just sun bleached hay that is probably no nutritional value. I just took a fork. There was a paddock behind the little barn where her stall is, and I took a fork and I would put that in, and she would chew on that. And the other thing is I asked there was some first cut, good
Yeah.
first cut Timothy grass hay from last year.
Yeah.
And
you're frozen. So we will
and
just, I didn't hear that. Can you, we'll just wait until, yeah, I think we are back online. So you were telling you had some really good first cut and then that was silent.
No, I had the barn where I'm boarding, they had some last year's first cut grass Timothy hay. And they were going to switch everybody to this year's hay. I don't know what they were going to do with that, sell it or something. And I just said, no, I want that for candy.
Yes.
And it's really not dusty. I do shake it out a bit, but it's really not dusty. And it's obviously of less nutritional value than this year's hay, but that's okay with me.
Absolutely. And what I also did in the beginning, but I stopped doing that because it was very expensive and also not that reliable, because I was doing a lot of research into hay back in 2016, like hay sugars, and I got the hay tested. But you have to get samples out of different bales, because the bales in the middle of the field can have a different sugar content than the bales on the outside of the field, even if it's the same cut, the same field, and so on. So I had to just take samples of different bales. I didn't know if that was from the same cuts, the same field. So that was like, I did get back the hay analysis. It was quite good, but if you would like to do that right, you have to sample each bale, send it, get the analysis before you feed it in order to be effective. That is one thing. It cost me 25 Canadian dollars for each sample. So I couldn't do that for each bale. That was just not realistic.
So much cheaper than here. So much cheaper. It's 60 euros to get one hay sample done here, and it's not even a good sample. If you want a good sample, it's like 100
it is
euros.
also not that reliable. What I found is I found a hay supplier here in Canada, and she is specialized in low sugar hay. So they have like different kinds, species of grass that they make hay of. So in the Netherlands, where everybody was doing dairy because that was heavily subsidized, and then went over to horse keeping because the subsidies went down, and horse keeping went up, and there was like a gold mine for farmers, but they all put like the horses in the high protein grass for milk cows. So there are different mixes for low sugar grass for horses. So that is also something that we can look into if we need to know that. Just for the information, it is there, maybe not in your country, but you have to look for it, because that's something that I learned in the journey. I thought grass is grass and hay is hay, which is absolutely not true. Thank you, Margaret.
So if I could just interject about the hay, the boarding barn that we're moving to, and we do have a move date, so we're moving on Friday. Yay.
Yes.
She tests her hay, and I think what they recommend is sort of a representative sample, and
Yes.
it's probably not going to be perfect, but they grow their own hay. And so it's going to be tested, and they just sent off their samples for this year's test, because I asked her if I could have it, and she said yes. And so I've been doing some research and have found that if it is like NSC, the non-structural carbohydrates, should be 12% or less, or some people do ESC, which is ethanol soluble carbohydrate plus fructan, and that should be 10% or less. And then if you look at the calories, and I might get my units wrong, but it's 0.8 megacalorie, because horses do megacalories instead of kilocalories, megacalories per, and I don't know the other unit, but that's something that apparently is standardized on the thing. And I'm almost positive they're going to send it to a lab called Equa Analytical. And I don't know what you have up there in Canada, but here in the US, Equa Analytical is the lab that everyone recommends. And I think they do specifically for horses. There's also one I think called Dairy One or something like that does cows and horses. So anyway, so I will be really interested to see what what that comes back as, and I'll let you all know. So
Yes,
it'll be interesting.
absolutely. I just have to move my thing. Well, my face is in the shadow, but otherwise I have like sun in my face and I can't see the screen. So it's yeah, thank you for that. And there are special places that do those tests, and I even heard that it's a super simple test, and it's $25 is even a ridiculous price, to be honest. So $60 is like gold mine for them. But
and there's barely any labs I've been able to find. I mean, obviously my French isn't perfect, so maybe I'm Googling the wrong thing, but I mean, they're very behind with their horse keeping here in general, so it wouldn't surprise me if there's not much of a market for it.
what you could do is, if you have friends in the UK or the Netherlands, ask them who they are using, because
since Brexit, I can't send anything to the UK because the customs is awful. In January this year, when everything happened, I was getting all of my supplements and stuff for my horses from the UK, and like Verve relapsed really badly because of like having to change over all the supplements, because there was no deal and there was expected to be a deal. All of a sudden the tax was sky high, and it's this is just not what we need.
You're frozen. Just wait. Everybody is frozen in my just have to wait.
His best supplement I was able to find in France, and it's the only one that worked for him. So it's such a nightmare. Why have you done this to us?
What supplement works for string halt, just out of curiosity?
Magnesium, because it's like
Okay.
in nerves and neurological thing. And it was a specific liquid magnesium that worked really well for him. Like other ones like magnesium oxide, nothing. It didn't work, but this liquid one was quite high in sort of bioavailability, and it seemed to work much better. And
I'm glad that you're mentioning that, because it reminds me of because when I had all these issues, it was 2016, so it's 5 years ago, and you know how the brain works. If you don't use that information, it just disappears again. But yes, when I started adding magnesium, but not the normal magnesium, because it's not bioavailable to them, but the other one, I forgot what the names are, that the body can easily takes it in. That also really helped Kira to slim down. And I even found, of course, this is all anecdotal, but I think it really helped her with her hunger feeling.
Oh,
yeah.
And magnesium is also helps to help with the muscle, to relax it and to relax their mind. So if they are less stressed, like Kira with her solitary confinement, her whole body was just so hard. If you touch it, the muscles were so hard. And with the magnesium, she started to relax, her body started to relax. And I think things started to happen in her body. And I also had some supplements of a lady later on that I bought here in Canada. I think I started adding selenium at a point, just to get that up to level. I didn't test it. It was just like, just add one thing at a time. If you change something in their diet, change one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Because then that's the only way you can see the result. If you add 2 supplements, you don't know which one worked, or maybe they interact also. So yeah, for overweight horses, magnesium, I'm just a fan.
Yeah. For me, it's magnesium. The 2 that I've noticed for Verve is magnesium and acetyl L-carnitine, which
Acetyl L-carnitine.
that's
Yeah.
the one,
Acetyl L-carnitine. Yeah.
That works amazingly for her. I didn't think it was doing anything. I added it not for weight loss, but when I thought she was PSSM1 positive, because that's really common in Meren's. That's one of the things they recommend for PSSM1. She turned out not to be that. And eventually, sort of a few months later, we decided to ditch it. And the minute I ditched it, her weight loss stopped. And it took me about 5 months to really work out, hang on a minute, why is her weight loss stopped? It stopped over winter, which is like completely backwards. She was on slightly more hay, but not enough. And again, our hay's tested. Our hay is sourced from the mountains around here, and the sort of grounds around the mountains. None of it's rye. Everything's low sugar. I think our hay was tested at 3.8% combined NCS, so it was really low. They'd cut it a bit too late, so it was over dried and just not great that year. So we had fab hay for horses. So
excellent. Would you like to share that also in the Facebook group, the supplements everybody used and what the results was? Because these are things that's always good to have as a reminder, like, oh, maybe I should look into that for my horse, and then do your research and look into it if it could potentially hurt your horse, or that if it doesn't work, it's also not bad. Ask your vet, do your research. Because that is something. I am not a nutritionist. I'm also not a vet. So yeah, everybody needs to take their own responsibility. But I do absolutely believe you right away that is something that really helps, because I have seen some supplements doing amazing work. And then sometimes a supplement needs to build up in the body before it starts to work. And it's some supplements have takes a few weeks before it starts really working. And also because you need to add them every day. Like, it's just for us, if we take one vitamin pill with vitamin C, nothing happens. But if we take starting to take 200 milligrams of vitamin C for 5 days in a row, yes, you know where your threshold for vitamin C lies or not, and then you have to hit those up, and then you can measure the result, like over winter, for instance, for us, regarding to our immune system. So that is something that I just want for everybody who's watching the recording. Supplements is a long haul. Sometimes you have to do it for longer, and then what you say, Rochelle, if you stop doing it, then and you look back, and then it's maybe the only way where you can realize if it does work. And then you have to ask yourself, in my situation, would it be a good idea to stop to see if I want to really see if my horse is decreasing instead of increasing? Because then again, it goes faster the second time. But yeah, so those are all questions to think about and realize. And yeah, there is a lot of research out there, but it's sometimes also really hard to find. And sometimes the research is done on a really small population, like 5 horses. There's a lot of anecdotes on the internet.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
That's the thing I find. I tend to err on the side of everything and the kitchen sink. And so I have to really try to be discerning about what I do, and especially with supplements. So I've kind of had to, watch that a little bit. But I do think there are things that are targeted and really can be helpful. I don't remember if I shared in this, since my horse on Friday, he had his huge like checkup and everything, and we're waiting for his blood work back. But one thing that we realized is that his suspensory, which was injured, looks great. So that's good. But he's showing signs on his foot radiographs of a little bit of a worsening of his ring bone. So he's got ring bone arthritis. And but he gets around really well. And I've had him on this supplement that I've kind of been, saying, oh, it's so expensive and I'm not sure I might get him off of this, and he's been on it for quite a while. And so I just wonder if maybe that supplement is working, or
Which
maybe it's
supplement
not.
is that?
Well, this is like a big combo. It's a small company out in Washington State called Animal Element, and it's called Finish First. And they're not a big name,
But
but
what's
it's
the
got like
ingredient?
has all the typical joint things in it. It's got the chondroitin, it's got the glucosamine, it's got that myristoyate or something like that. It's got hyaluronic acid. So those are like all the big four joint things that you kind of throw at horses. And then it also has, so it's like a complete, so it's also got turmeric, which is good for anti-inflammatory. It's got astaxanthin, which is also an antioxidant. It's got colostrum in there, which is also supposedly very kind of a newer cutting edge thing. It's got like a digestive thing in there. And again, they put these things in and they do list exactly the milligrams of the four joint supplements, but the other stuff is kind of a blend. It's an alfalfa base. And then it's got it's got vitamin C, vitamin E. So it's got like a ton of stuff in there. And I was looking at it today because my barn owner just recommended that I put him on it. And I was like, oh yeah, I have heard that this is supposed to be good. And I have heard that that's supposed to be good. So I may just keep him on it. So anyway, there's that.
Yeah, and at one point, if he's doing well, you could think, but only if you want to monitor like what would happen. Because one thing that I found about glucosamine, that is one of the only supplements that I found in studies, like all studies I found, is it works. They really did measurements about the bone in the joints, that soft bone, I don't know, cartilage. That it really helped the cartilage, and that it helped the fluids in the
synovial fluid.
Yes. Oh my God, my brain is not working. Anyway, thank you so much for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
I was amazed. I can remember like the glucosamine, like for humans, for cats, for dogs, for horses, that is really something that works. So if that's in there, you could, for instance, this is just an idea, because I don't know, like usually when they put everything in there, it's also more expensive. So what you could do is switch that for pure glucosamine for a while and see if the other things, and then still you don't know what the other things is, but if that is like a also a good solution, that would be a good idea. Like, well, just to make things in general, vitamin C is something horses just make. Only rabbits, or guinea pigs, humans, and monkeys don't make them. It cannot hurt, but it's also a super cheap ingredient. And because we humans need to have it, it's very marketed. So it is one of the things that they can easily put in there, or maybe it was already in there because they used an ingredient and then just marketed that way. So that is, I'm a little bit skeptic sometimes about like long lists, like, okay, vitamin C is just doesn't cost, is so cheap. I think it would be more expensive to take that out. you know. So
It could be, yeah.
but those
Well,
are just no.
Yeah, no, I don't mean to get all down the rabbit hole, but there's
No.
a nutritionist named Dr. Juliet Getty, and I like her work and I follow her. She's an equine nutritionist, and I was reading her joint book. She's got a little supplement, a joint, like a little transcript of a presentation she's given, and then she's got a big book too. And so last night I was reading the joint book, and she mentions in there, and she goes through all these, things that you could try. And she said there are a very few insulin resistant horses who don't do well with glucosamine. For some reason, it spikes glucose. And then I was like, oh my gosh, no, I'm not. But first of all, my horse is not documented as insulin resistant yet. We'll find that out. So I found that intriguing to kind of keep in the back of my mind. But she goes on to say, for most cases and it's a great supplement. So anyway, there's that little thing that I read last night and kind of made me go, I give up. It's like so confusing. The more you read, the more confused you get.
It is confusing. It is, because most studies study one thing, because you can only focus on one thing, because otherwise you don't know if it is a result or not. But the body is more than one thing. And then the health, like exercise, stress, everything else has an influence. So it's still, the studies are really, really good, but I think we all should just study our own horses for the most time. But yes, studies can really help. Rochelle, would you like to say something?
Oh, I was just saying, colostrum that's in both of my horses are on colostrum. Colostrum, I swear, saved Vert's life, hands down, not being dramatic at all. Until I put her on the Immubiome colostrum supplement, she was trying to kill me pretty much every day. That was the thing that helped her.
So it helped her mood, or what did it help?
It helped her, it stopped her tying up completely. And after that, she stopped tying up. Her weight loss increased more when she sort of started taking that. My understanding is that it helps the hind gut. It heals. It heals the hind. Well, it heals the whole body apparently, because it helps it's something to do with it has loads of nutrients in it that babies need. But if a horse has had damage done to them, it sort of helps with boost nutrients. Yeah, so apparently it helps with the hind gut, and considering a lot of overweight horses have hind gut problems, especially I believe dysbiosis is the one they sort of consider a lot of overweight horses have. And it
and for the record, for everybody who does not know what colostrum is, it's the milk from, I don't know which colostrum from which species, but it's the milk bovine. It's the milk that newborn babies get. So that, I think it's called colostrum, I think for the first so many hours, and it's usually
48 hours.
48 hours. And then it's usually it's also it's a different consistency of the milk that is produced later. So it's really a boost for babies, high nutrients, because babies usually lose weight first before they gain weight. And everything is in there for immune system. It is it's amazing. So it really makes sense that it's a supplement that really helps your horse. Absolutely.
That was the thing that saved her life. What we assume she had now is she had been slightly neglected, so she had a high worm count, which damaged her hind gut, but the vets wouldn't listen to me when I said she had gut problems. I kept saying she's got gut problems, and they wouldn't listen. And in the end, they just kept going down the rabbit hole of her tying up constantly. But she was tying up because she was lacking nutrients, because she was losing them from her gut. Which is what my new vet believes happened, but the 3 previous vets before that wouldn't even listen to me when I kept
Well, I
saying.
think, thank you for mentioning that. And also, yeah, that's really good that you didn't gave up on your horse. Because what I have found is like not all vets are equal. Some do know more than others. Some do listen to the owners of the horse more than others. So having a vet is a very personal thing. I was quite lucky because in Canada they are quite, they walk around the bush with information. I said to him like, yeah, I'm Dutch, just give it to me straight. And he's like, she's an 8 body score. And then I'm like, are you sure? Because I want to know. I didn't want to hear it, of course, but I wanted to know. And then he said, well, to be honest, she is a 9 because I cannot feel her ribs. She is crushed, neck crusty. She has all these fat pockets, but because it was so, if you look back in the pictures, still when I see the pictures, yes, she's a little overweight, but I wouldn't say a 9 because it's so evenly spread. I still can't see it. I can't see it with other horses. It's like I come give riding lessons. I'm like, whoa. But you know, not all vets are the same, and sometimes you really have to just say like, I just want the information, even if it's painful to hear, because only if I have the information I can move forward. And in Canada, for instance, because of the culture that is here, they're all like, oh, you know, you're doing your best. Well, I just needed the vet that says she's overweight, you have to do something now.
Yeah.
And then just, and I really want to applaud you, Rochelle, just by going through another vet, and until
we went through 5 vets in total. One of them was okay, she was pretty good, but she hit my gelding, and that was it.
Out.
He was gone after that. He's, you know, it's not his fault. He is neurological. Like he's scared of everything. If he doesn't see my boyfriend in a few days, he's scared of him again. But the few days before, they're best friends. He's like that. That's just him. I must go away for a few days, and I'm terrified he'll be scared of me when I get back. But it'll be okay.
That's one reason we're leaving where we are. The barn owner has a natural horsemanship outlook, but it's that very, I'm going to beat your ass if you don't do exactly what I say right now. And she has gotten after my horse before. And even Friday, she put, she's a good trimmer, you know, and she was putting some Epona shoes on him. And she had his foot up, and it's very, you know, she was casting it on. So you have to have the epoxy, and his foot, bless his heart, was up for 3 minutes, and he's standing. And so when I take his foot and I do stretches and stuff, a lot of times he'll like lean back and stretch. I mean, he's literally just stretching, and I hold this foot, and he started to do that. And she's like, Remy, and she scared him to death, like the look in his eyes, and he hopped on the other leg and kind of made a grunt like it really hurt him, you know. And then it's all, she has some, I can't stand when people have this negative, like, he's such an idiot, or he's such could be in such a turd, or she'll come and say, well, Remy is such a princess. If you do anything, and we're just keeping him together. And I'm like, so anyway, it's that attitude that she has toward her horses. And now there are times when she's nice, and I've monitored, you know, as far as her trimming him, I like to be there, but yeah, I just don't trust her with him. I just don't trust her with anybody else's horse, but they're not my horses. I mean, I've seen her, and then she's got these 3 dogs, and when she starts getting after a horse, the dogs go on the horse too. So yeah. Anyway, I don't mean to, yeah, anyway, blah, blah, blah. So that's why we're leaving.
Anyway, we talked about management things, food, friends, forage, enrichments. Maybe we can all share a little bit what you did. I shared it in the presentation, what I did for Kira, and I think there's more, because now I'm talking to you about it. I remember like the magnesium, and more stuff. Yeah, so who would like to share how they keep their horses and what they do for enrichment? And even if it's like a little thing that you think like, oh, everybody knows this, just mention it, because we don't know. Or we can all use reminders like, oh yeah, we could do this or we could do that, and I totally forgot about it. So it's not about what you know, it's about what you remember and what you can do. And this idea sparks another idea and another and another. So yeah, would anybody likes to go first? Like, what are you doing, what you're doing for enrichment? Yeah, Rochelle?
I'll go first. So, I mean, we're quite lucky because my lot are on our own property. Our house is kind of in the middle, and then our land horseshoes around our house, and the shelter is in front of our house, and there's only a small, very small, you would call it a garden-sized paddock in front of the shelter. And then that sort of goes, we've got forest, and in the forest goes around behind the house. And then the forest leads down to the field. And in total, it's about 2.5 to 2 hectares, I'd say. And we have a track system that goes around the edges of the grass fields. And it's a sort of a figure of 8 shape in the big field. And the forest is untracked. We just let them make their own track through it. That way they can forage however they want on everything that's in the forest. We don't pick up fallen trees. They stay unless we want them for the wood. They just become obstacles and scratching posts that they can use, and they do. My mare actually, Verve, she knocks down trees if they're too small. She'll walk over them in summer and use them as a belly scratcher, and then she snaps them and then they're dead. So she's very good at managing the forest for us. Our track is grass and mud. I had a really long conversation with my vet about this, and I was like, okay, so we've got this short stressed grass, which in theory is higher in sugar. She's like, yeah, but you're feeding them a large portion of McDonald's fries versus 10 McDonald's meals that they would have access to at all times otherwise if you let them in the full pasture. So that was her sort of summary of short stressed grass as a snack with hay, or the full pasture all of the time, because she's EMS, so she's always hungry. She's going to eat until she becomes so round. Well, I mean, she's going to eat until she becomes 700 kilograms again. So, because that's what she did at her old one.
To add, when I started to add magnesium as a supplement for Kira, and I was a little bit further in the process that she didn't have laminitis anymore and she lost weight, she also started to self-regulate again, which I thought I thought that would never ever happen again, but she did. Well, she should have stopped here and she stopped there. You know,
that's the problem I have with Verve.
But the point is that when I offered her more and more forage, in the end, she stopped, or she started self-regulating again, which is just something, yeah, I just want to share that, because if your horse is on a strict diet, it doesn't mean that it has to be like that forever.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the day that we can increase. At the moment, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hay feeding points. And usually I have hay.
How many horses? 5?
Currently 2 horses. And so there's 5 locations, each with 2 hay feeders. They both have their preferences on which hay feeder they use, because they're all slightly different. They're handmade.
And do you think it is the place of the hay feeder or the hay feeder itself?
The hay feeder themselves, they're all very different, and we're in a prototype stage where we're sort of hand making, where my partner is hand making hay feeders.
And have you also tried to switch the favorite one to another spot and see what happens?
We haven't yet because they're really heavy.
Okay.
But yeah, we're sort of building lots of different types of hay feeders also, because last year we fed mainly from nets sort of tied to trees and stuff, and I didn't like the fact that obviously they were like this at a net constantly. So this year they're going down at a net instead of up at a net, because in winter we can't put nets on the ground because it's wet and muddy or snowy, and it just doesn't work. They always have, there's 4 hay nets of straw, oat, no, actually we're on barley straw at the moment. There's 4 different hay nets of barley straw around our track system, and we have lots of fallen logs and trees for them to step over. We should probably soon have an extra 2 horses coming as well, which will help with movement and company. And it's going to be quite challenging because one of them is very, very, very old, and so she has the complete opposite dietary requirements to my 2, but we'll have to build her a feeding pen and keep her in a feeding pen.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to give the others also like a little bit of time to share what they are doing. So thank you so much, and let's go also in the Facebook group, and if you have pictures of what you're doing, share them, because that is really
I've got a video of our track, so
perfect.
I'll put it up.
Sarah, tell us about your new stall, or what you did in your old stall that was about enrichment that you thought was helpful for your horse, or what you think can help other people. Also mention the for you normal things. Oh yeah, we had like the water on the opposite side of the hay, and I noticed a lot of movement. For you it's maybe normal and you think you don't need to mention that, but these things are also important.
Well, okay, thanks. Well, our current situation, which again, we got 4 more days of, has actually, it's got a lot of benefits. And that's why I moved in there in the beginning. It is all field board all the time, which got its ups and downs, but where we live is very hilly. And so the water feeder, or the water trough, it's an automatic water, is placed at the top of the hill on purpose so that they have to travel up. Right now he's in a group of maybe 11, 12, 13 maybe geldings. And so he has obviously company, so friends, and he gets along. He's kind of a little bit of a dominant type, but he's a pretty respectful one, so that's good. And so he can travel around and walk. They get a salt block that they can all just kind of share. And so he's got the friends, he's got the forage, because he's got 24-hour access. And again, that has its ups and downs because there's no controlling it. He has the freedom to go around. It's a pretty big field. And so is it friends, forage, freedom, and what is there another F?
No, it's 3 Fs: friends, forest, and freedom.
Okay, so basically his diet is all forage based. He gets his sort of supplements, and I have sort of a mixture of beet, a little bit of beet pulp, teff pellets, which I wanted to ask, do you all have teff in your respective countries? Do you have
TAFF?
TEFF?
TEFF.
TEFF.
Never heard of it. I don't know.
It is like the lowest. I don't know exactly what the let's see if I can find the, but anyway, it is an extremely low sugar, low starch. In fact, if anyone ever has had Ethiopian food, they have a bread called injera that's made with teff, and teff is actually a grain that people eat now. It's up and coming. It's kind of a grass. It's not really. So anyway, that's what I give him. And that's what I use for our treats is teff. And then so he's got some beet pulp and I'm gonna look up this article here. He's got beet pulp, teff, and a little bit of alfalfa thrown in. So that's kind of his little bit of diet that he gets in addition. And then the hay is currently grown on the property, and it is, she's had it and analyzed, but I've never gotten the analysis, but it is more of a grassy kind of busy hay that they get. So as far as actual, like right now, I don't have to worry about him having stall boredom or anything like that. So that's good. Now he's going to be in his stall. The new thing is he's going to be in from about 8 to about 3:30. So, I am an error on the side of I wish he had more time, but I like the fact that he's going to have a dedicated space if I need to bring him in for any reason. He's going to be in there during the day, and then I can plan my going there to work with him, more during the day. I've got a hay net, and it's interesting, Sandra, that you mentioned that Kira is self-regulated, because the idea is if your hay is a good low enough, non-structural carbohydrates and all that, and calorie wise, that you should provide it pretty much free choice, or maybe at a hay net or a slow feeder. And that eventually, as they lose weight and as you do, then they will eventually self-regulate, but that they should have that free flowing through their system pretty much all the time with very little interruption, instead of just throwing them on a diet, because the horse's stomach secretes acid all the time. So they need something to buffer that. So
that was one of the main focuses of my management thing. How can I feed her as much fiber during the day as I could? And I had to think of all kind of solutions, like coming extra and asking somebody else to throw in this hay net that I prepared with small hay holes so yeah, thank you for mentioning that, because I saw the results of that management of what I did.
And I'm going to try to do that again, pending the results of the hay analysis. I'm going to I'll probably put it in a slow feeder. And there is a slow feeder. His hay net can be fairly low, but there's also a slow feeder that's designed. It's called the Hay Gain Forager. And it's, Margaret, you mentioned the steamers. It may be the same company that makes the steamers that cost like $1,200. This is an expensive, relatively expensive, but it's like a barrel, and it has a kind of a mesh on top, and they eat like this, and they kind of push it down as they, consume. So that might be an option too for him to have in his stall, where he's in a good position for his saliva production and all that, but still having a slow feeder.
That's another thing that sorry to interrupt, but
no, go ahead.
One reason why it's super important to feed them as much as possible from the ground in a natural position is that their jaw, their lower jaw sinks in position when the head is down, and then they can use their molars in the proper position even better than when they are just pulling it out or pulling it out like that, because that is also giving a lot of stress there. So those are also kind of little things that can have a big impact over time. So sorry to interrupt. Do you have like strategies to keep him busy in his stall?
Well, that's, basically it's going to be his hay net. And then we'll see. I actually have had one of those balls that you stuff hay in. And this was back at the other barn when he was on stall rest. And so I would put hay in there, and he had shoes at the time and had sort of a pad. It was a very expensive setup, and those pads kept coming out. And I thought, what on earth? Well, it turns out that on that hay ball, he's learned to bang his hoof like really hard on that hard hay ball and loosen his pad. So I decided to take that away. And he's really not one for playing for things like in his stall, but I have like a jolly ball I might put in there, but he never used it. So I really think he is more interested in getting out and doing stuff. And so we'll do stuff like that. And then I've got a lot of ideas for him to do stuff like Liberty work and sort of fun things for him.
Is he already used to eating from a hay net or a slow feeder?
Yeah. Okay. He's always had that.
Because one of the things you can do anyway is provide like 2 or more slow feeders, depending on the space and whatever,
Mhm.
with different mazes, so different sizes of holes, to provide
Yes.
a little bit more of challenge for, because that's what I did. Like in the end, I bought a slow feeder for a mini horse, which has like 1-inch holes. That's the
Mhm.
smallest holes you can get. If
Mhm.
if the net gets more empty, the holes close if you hang that net.
Mhm.
So I provided like half a flake of hay on top of everything I did. Like
Mhm.
if you are really motivated, you can start doing that and have some exercise. You can also think of like putting some straw in a net, or providing just, that's also something that I did for years before she got laminitis. I just sometimes bought a bale of straw for my own money, and I just tossed in once in a while a flake uh, of straw. And sometimes she really liked to pull it apart herself, and finding the little seeds that might have been stuck in there, or those are like also things that you can try out, depending on.
I have to look into straw because I've never really thought about it for horses. You think of, oh, I don't want my horse eating that, but maybe, I mean, obviously it's got a purpose. It can be used, huh?
Well, they like to nibble on it more.
Yeah.
Like some horses, that I've seen horses that ate their whole stall
Yeah.
clean over the night.
Oh,
I think, first of all, those were also stressed out horses. They can eat out of stress, but they can
mhm.
also eat because they're hungry and they don't get enough fiber in their regular hay, or simply not enough hay, because
Yeah.
that was the problem that I saw with one of the ponies at the boarding facility. Oh, she eats straw, so let's give her less hay because she's eating the straw, instead of adding more hay so she won't eat that straw. And finally they put her on flax and on shavings, and she
Mhm.
started even to eat that. So for me it was like, this horse needs fiber, how can you provide that? While they were just like a solution, like how can I prevent the horse from eating all the straw, instead of
Oh,
asking
interesting.
why is the horse eating that. So
Yeah.
yeah, straw is, it's I don't really consider it as a food, but as play, nibble, and
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
sometimes they can colic out of it because I don't
Yeah.
know exactly why, but so that's also something. And sometimes, yeah, you can try it out. And I think straw can be a really good, cheap enrichment.
Right. Um,
Horses that are kept on straw beds, there's been research that if you Google search it, there's a scientific paper that says that horses that are kept on straw beds are far less likely to develop stable vices than
Yes.
horses that are kept on other types of beds. So it is a fab thing, even
oh,
just to
interesting.
leave out as an option in a corner for them.
Yeah,
Well, I've
because that
already,
feeding is such a huge part of their day. It's more than
mhm.
half of what they need to do, and also
Yeah.
in order to keep healthy,
Yeah.
prevent stomach ulcers.
Yeah.
So finding enrichment with food is just a great idea. And yeah, and they used to put straw in the stables like in the old days all the time.
Yeah. Another thing I've requested is that he get night turnout, because they turn out at 3:30 or 4, and then they bring him back in at 8 o'clock. So he's going to be out all of that time. And so that's going to be good. And I kind of know like the field that he's going to be in. It's got like a nice little shed that's right up against the barn that he can come in, or he can go back out and he's going to be out with 2 other horses. And I also have a grazing muzzle, which I have used in the past, but I wasn't allowed to use a grazing muzzle at the place he is right now, because they have those automatic waterers and you can't use the cage of the grazing muzzle is too wide. So I might use that. We'll see.
Yeah, and
I
what I did with grazing muzzles, I didn't put them on 24/7.
right.
I started like with small amounts in the beginning, because in the beginning they don't know how to use it. So if you put it just half an hour on and then do some chores or whatever, you can first of all monitor what they do. They don't get too stressed. And in the beginning, I've seen many horses that just don't eat for that half hour, which is another half hour of not gorging. And then like you can help them feed through the whole, like some hay or whatever, so that they can think of that, like, oh, I can eat with this. And then what I also did, like sometimes they rub their noses, like, okay, I do it one day and then one day I take it off. And
exactly.
like, it's not like put that on and leave it until they're slim.
Right, exactly.
But I also think like monitor and kind of let them give the opportunity to learn to manage that themselves, so they can train themselves how to use it. And that was also the muzzle thing, was also something that I some days I took it off, some days I put it on, just according to the circumstances. Like, yeah, if it's really, really cold, she can have more hay. So I didn't want her to eat with a muzzle from the round bell. I just took it off that day.
Yeah, I don't think they can eat hay as well through it. It would be just for grazing. And some
Well,
horses.
that's what I thought. Well, you will be amazed.
Seriously?
And like what Margaret said, like her pony Candy can eat with a muzzle
really?
from a slow feeder net, and Kira could learn to do that too. Not in
I
the
bet
first
Remy
year.
can too. I'm sure.
Not
But
in the
some
first,
horses get so. Oh yeah.
not at first, but they will like, and the
Learn.
better they get at it. Yeah.
And they say some horses get so stressed that it's not worth it, or it's something to weigh, but Remy's not stressed at it at all. And I think the one that he has is called a green guard, which I believe is from Britain, Rochelle. You may know them.
I've
I don't know.
seen that. Yeah. I've used
And
that
so
one.
I've gotten that one. There's another one called a thin line that's supposed to be really soft and kind of, but they're on back order. And anyway, I've got the green guard, but I think they say when you first put it on them, grab some hay and put it on the inside of their muzzle,
also,
so they'll be like, oh, there's grass here. And then they'll kind of start.
Exactly.
But Remy's pretty well trained, I think.
Well, we can go into details in the group because there are strategies. I just want to give Margaret also a little bit of time to share what she's doing. She started also in the beginning sharing her experiences, but what have you, because Margaret, I know you have hills, but what else have you tried with Candy or other horses for enrichments? You have to unmute yourself.
There, yeah. No, it wasn't working. Okay. Well, it's interesting. I'm really constantly looking at sort of my 3 horses. And
would you like to put the mic a little bit closer to your mouth, because it's a bit soft? Yes, that's a little bit better. Yes.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I had it turned up. I'm always looking at what affects domestication and our management is having on my horses. And I was interested that Sarah mentioned about the automatic waterer and the muzzle, the grazing muzzle, because this is because Candy's a pony and she is in a paddock with an automatic waterer, she could get her grazing muzzle into the automatic waterer. But I have noticed when she's in her stall with a bucket of water, she doesn't have automatic water in a bucket. So of course, we're smashing ice in the winter and emptying buckets and everything, but she plays in her water. She dumps her hay in the water. And I think that's a source of enrichment. And I actually, on some hot days with my other 2 horses, actually, well, all my horses, I had some tubs and I put some water and I threw some ice cubes in them. And they were having a great fun time with that, splashing and playing in the water. So I think that horses are probably happier with natural water sources like ponds and streams. there's other problems with that, and you know what grows in them or whatever. But I do think automatic waterers ensure your horses are getting water, but do they really satisfy all the requirements that a horse has for not just drinking water, but also playing in water? And I don't think they do. So that's kind of interesting thing to think about.
That's also thank you for mentioning that, because I do believe that like natural water, or even if it's rainwater that you collect, has different taste than just the tap water. So that could be something. Some other solution that popped in my head, but I don't know if it's feasible if you're having 11 horses, is that if your horse is wearing a muzzle and he can't use the automatic waterer, that you can provide a bucket or a tub with water. Well, there is a chance that all the other horses think I like that way better and drink it, but just, yeah. Margaret, yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I actually ran into that problem with fly protection too, and sun protection. Some of them can't let them get into an automatic waterer, right? Yeah, I'd love to hear people share about the different types of muzzles that are in different places. I don't know what we can get here other than what I have, but I'd love to see pictures of them or what they are, because I actually thought, can I invent a better muzzle, grazing muzzle in some way? I don't know. I think for Candy at the moment, she's getting enough. She's maintained her weight over the last year with what I'm doing, but she's not losing, but she's maintained it, but she's not gaining. So I'm really going to focus on the exercise that we've been doing, which she absolutely loves, spending that time with me. And so I think, and I mean, she's takes to it like that, and she learns very quickly, and she's 19, and I've just never did anything with her really.
Okay, we have 2 more minutes, just for your information.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to focus on that, which really she views as a game, like the mat training, for example, to get in the exercise. So that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you can send her from mat to mat and put a whole row of mats, which is easy. Yeah.
What kind of mats do you recommend? Is there something kind of heavy duty or special?
Well, what I recommend, or what I don't really recommend it, because I use puzzle mats because they're light, so they're easy for me to clean up and take out. They're cheap. They don't destroy it. The downs are that some horses need to learn to stand on it because they're squishy. They don't like that. They're a little bit, I don't trust that. And they blow away in the wind. So,
okay.
but they're way cheaper. They're like $12, and then you have 4 instead of like heavy duty rubber mats for door mats. You could have those too with the holes.
Oh, yeah.
You can even cut them in half maybe, but those are more like $15-20 a piece. The rubber mats, the plastic puzzle mat, you can often, they have them also in gray. They have them colored, which is another thing. Like, can you step on the yellow mat because it's a different color, context. But you also have them in gray, and lots of people use them in the garage or in trailers. And often I see them along the road, like packaged to be for the garbage. I'm like, oh, those are free mats. So that you have to have something that is big enough. Like, I like those mats because they're like by 50 by 50 centimeters each. So that's a good size. They're cheap, they're easy. And because they're lightweight, that's just easy for us. So yeah, the only downside is that, they can blow away in the wind. Well, in the wind, I do something other, but yeah, that's what I use.
Okay.
And they're sturdy. Yeah, don't let them eat them, but yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Any other last minute questions? Well, then I suggest share pictures in the group about the grazing muzzles. I have experience with 3 kinds. I can tell you more in the group. I I had to buy a lot of grazing muzzles. So yeah, don't get me started.
Mhm.
Anyway, thank you for being here. I will put the recording up in the group. Thank you. Happy horse training and have a great weekend. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.